Welcome to Your Success Podcast. We give you actionable insight and stories behind real-life success wherever you go. Here are your hosts, Angelos and Mo.
Your Success Podcast is proudly sponsored by Your Tax Partners, specialists in helping business owners and property investors to understand the wide range of tax issues that impact on their income, gains, and overall wealth. Now, let's get into the show. Welcome to Your Success Podcast. I'm Mo.
And I'm Angelos. Today we're discussing the price of success. We all want to be successful, whether that is rich or be respected by our peers or simply spend more time with our families. But do we truly understand what we need to do to become successful? Is there a price to pay when it comes to being a success, or can a balance be achieved?
We're really fortunate today to have with us Peter Hill, director at Mark Holt & Co. and author of Pricing for Profit, who has decades worth of experience in helping to turn around businesses into profitable enterprises.
Thank you for joining us today, Peter.
Good morning.
Success can be seen as a very subjective topic, so can we start today, Peter, and ask, what does success mean to you?
It was interesting when you posed that question as I prepared to talk today, because I don't really think about it enough. Like a lot of people, I just go to work and get on with stuff. I think for me, it's about two things. Firstly, freedom. Freedom to go to work when I want to, freedom to take time out if I need to, spend time with the family. Although, like many people, I still work too hard. But what I'm aiming for is I don't have to go to work tomorrow. I can take that time out. So freedom is one of those things that I think we all aspire to, but it's very easy to get trapped into working hard. The second thing for me is a financial target, really, where what I personally am aiming to do is to get to the stage where I would be what I would call financially independent. If I stopped working, my lifestyle would be sustainable. And that's a challenge for a lot of people, which is, have I got enough money in my pensions? Have I got enough investments? If I stopped working today, would my income levels continue so I could carry on doing what I want to do without having to go to work to do it? I'm not there yet, but that's what I'm aiming for, yeah.
So it's a measure of freedom, measure of financial, and just making sure that it's sustainable. So you're autonomous should the worst happen, and you can just take your foot off the pedal and know that your lifestyle can be sustained.
Yeah, one of the challenges I see with lots of my clients is they earn 40 grand a year and go, God, if I was earning 50 grand a year, life would be so much easier. Then they earn 50 grand a year and spend it all. And they go, if I was earning 60 grand a year, life would be so much easier. And they earn 60 grand a year and spend it all. And the problem is twofold. One is, if you spend every penny you earn, you have to keep going. The second thing is, if you spend every penny you earn, you're not putting any of it aside to be able to stop working one day. For most people, it's about, you've got to bite the bullet and stick money to one side to get to that point where you go, all right, I don't have to work anymore. Great. I can retire if I choose to. And that's the choice. That's what we all want, is the ability to work or not work as we see fit.
So when we get our pay rises, 100 grand, 200 grand, whatever it may be, we always spend what we have. Is that what you find with a lot of people?
Yes, a lot of people spend their income, and some. That's the problem sometimes. I'm sure we'll talk about that a bit later on. But I went to a seminar many years ago, and the guy said, as you earn more money, what you need to do is invest it and live off the investment returns. And eventually the investment returns are enough that you don't have to work anymore. If you just buy a bigger house or a bigger car, well, you can't do that. That's an unsustainable lifestyle, because you get to retirement and you have to sell that nice car and downsize that nice house and not have the holidays that you've got used to. And that shock of adjusting from a nice lifestyle that you've been running on full speed to get to, oh, I can't do that anymore, that's the bit people want to avoid.
Yeah. Entrepreneurs want to be at the top, but often find themselves running the business and they're at the beck and call of different entities, whether that's banks, customers, etc., etc. And before they know it, they become a slave to the business rather than the master of it, which is initially why they started out in the first place. What's your view on this?
I definitely see that every day in business. Far from being in control of their businesses, they are running flat out to keep everybody else happy. Business is difficult most of the time, but businesses do go through good phases and bad phases. The problem that I see is much of those issues are self-inflicted. They're not investing in that next recruit that will make their life easier. They're not investing in that new technology that will enable them to grow faster. It's just heads down, full steam ahead. That's the biggest frustration I see, is that people think business is a blunt instrument. If I just work twice as hard, I'll get twice as much. And that's not what happens. They've got to have enough financial resources to sack that customer that is draining their energy and resources, in order to go and find the good ones that will make their life easier. But if they're not, if they're too busy, they're in this vicious circle and handcuffed to the business. So yeah, I see that all the time. That is a genuine problem, that people are too busy running around like headless chickens to actually know what they need to do to fix it.
I think it's hard for people to reconcile working less and earning more.
Yeah.
I think, from a young age, everyone's brought up to work harder, to get more, but actually it's the other way around when you start to run a business, because you need to have the headspace and the time to think about where you want to take the business and delegate the lower level tasks to other people.
Yeah, you definitely do. If you're going to run a business, and that's the key phrase, not go to work, but to run a business, you need to have time to run that business, to see where you're going to take it, to see the opportunities, to identify the employees that aren't pulling their weight. If you're just right at the coalface, you can't see that stuff. That's a fact of life. But when you talk about working less to earn more, I'm not talking about not working hard. We all work hard. It's doing the right things. Yeah. In the pricing one, I think I gave the example where I said this business had, I can't remember, 1,000 customers, and the top half of their customer list was 98% of their turnover, and the bottom half was 2% of their turnover. The effort and energy that was going on that bottom 2% that was making no money was stopping them spending it on better quality customers. So it's not about taking days off, it's about making sure your time is spent on the right things.
So Peter, I've seen many times before small businesses or startup businesses. You mentioned about employing someone so they could, you could delegate some of the work away from yourself, so you can run the business as opposed to work for the business.
Yeah.
A common argument I hear a lot is, well, I can't afford to spend that £15,000 or £20,000 on employing that person to do the low-level tasks. So then they're stuck in this constant rut and they never get out of it. What's your advice there?
It's a tough one, because I understand the difficulties. If you haven't got the money, can you recruit that person? But if you go into business without the resources to drive that business where it needs to go, then don't go into business. You need to have the confidence and the resources, whether it's equity in your house to borrow against. Lots of people do that, or whether it's borrowing it from family and friends. If it's ever going to be the business you want it to be, there are occasions when you have to put money on the table first and believe it will pay back second. And if you can't or won't do that, we haven't really got a business.
And I think now there's so many outsourcing services where, rather than having to pay for someone full-time, you can either get someone part-time or get someone by the hour, that you can actually ramp up. So you can say, well, actually, I'm going to save myself 5 hours a week this week to spend on growing the business and outsource some of the admin or bookkeeping to this person, and they could be anywhere in the world.
You can, but it's also about saying, if I recruit that person, what are they going to do that frees me up to do something else?
Yeah.
Where will that time go? Will that time generate greater returns than the cost? Not always straight away, that's a challenge. If you get somebody on the payroll, it could be 3 months before they're doing anything useful, 6 months before they're really contributing, and in the meantime you've still got to pay their salaries. But if they're there doing something, what are you going to do in return? Win that next customer, start that next project, whatever that's going to be. That's the equation you've got to work out, is if I can liberate my time, is my time better spent doing something else, and what would it be? Don't recruit that person then go, right, now what do I do? You need to know that before you recruit.
Absolutely. Peter, people tend to present the front face of success, nice cars, houses, watches, holidays, etc., and especially on social media these days. But can the reality often be different?
Absolutely, yes. One of the things that as accountants we get to see is the financial realities behind those veneers. I've seen clients worth tens of millions of pounds who drive second-hand cars, live in modest houses, send their kids to state schools, who their neighbours probably think they haven't got a bean. They think, oh, they live a very modest lifestyle, but I know they're worth tens of millions of pounds. Equally, I've seen the opposite, which is people driving very expensive cars, living in huge houses, kids at very expensive private schools, all on borrowed money. They haven't really got that wealth. Or perhaps they are making that much money, but as we said just now, they're spending every penny of it on maintaining that lifestyle. And that's unsustainable. When that income stream disappears, those trinkets have to go. That's the reality. So yeah, as an accountant, I see that all the time. Frankly, do I care if somebody spends their own money on whatever they want to spend it on? No. The real problem I see is it's not their money. It's the bank's money, it's creditors' money, it's borrowed from, funding circle and places like that to maintain a lifestyle which isn't really sustainable. That's when it becomes a problem. But yeah, certainly as an accountant, we see both sides of that equation where, they're worth a lot more than you think they are, or they're not worth anywhere near as much as you think they are.
There's that great quote, I'm going to misquote it here, but something like, if you spend all your money on things you don't need, soon you'll have to sell things you need. Something like that, which I thought was really, really clever, because it speaks absolutely to that. You see both ends of the spectrum. Right?
Absolutely. And way too often, we have very successful clients. So a lot of our clients are making a lot of money. But it goes back to what I said just now. When they're making 40 grand a year, they want to earn 50 and then they spend 50 and then they make 100 and they spend 100. They're not banking any of that wealth along the way, and therefore their lifestyle is not sustainable. As soon as their income dries up, those things have to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we talk about the price of success, Peter. In your experience, do you see many successful entrepreneurs achieving a work-life balance and live a stress-free life, or is it very hard for many years and then they can tail off, or is it a constant stress, or is it a mixture of all three?
I think for me, it was an interesting question when I saw you posed it, is you talk about this issue of stress. Everyone's stressed. Everyone has stress. Whether you're employed, self-employed, big job, little job, doesn't matter. Stress, and I saw a definition once that says stress is pressure without control. Okay, everybody's worried about paying their mortgage. If you're in control of that because you have enough income to do that, that's a different thing. If everyone has people they don't always work very well with, well, if you're the boss, you can fix that. If you're the employee, you can't fix that. So I think, does anyone get their work-life balance right? I don't know if they do. Whether you're working in Tesco's on the counter or whether you're running your own multi-million-pound business, that is a constant battle of, what do I want to do versus what do I have to do, and can I get that close enough that I'm enjoying it? So do I see it very often? No, I see lots of business people working way too hard, way too many hours. And whether you'd call it stress, because actually a lot of them enjoy that. They like the cut and thrust of business. They like the always somewhere to go and be. That's part of their DNA, is they like the stuff that goes with that. So they wouldn't necessarily call it stress. They might call it pressure. I see that all the time. Sometimes not having that level of workload is more stressful. When they retire, so they set up their business for a few million quid and go and play golf, in 6 months they're dead, because the stress of not having something to do is more damaging than the stress of being really busy. So do I see many people get it right? No, I think all of us struggle every day with getting that balance right. We all, when you get to my age, we all look back and go, I should have spent more time with the kids. I can't now, but I should have done. Most people have that same challenge.
Do you have any clients or anyone that you've seen that has managed it really well, and you think, God, they're achieving an incredible amount, they seem very relaxed, they're always on holiday, and is there anything that you could identify? Is it the systems they've got in their business, or is it the type of industry they've chosen? Have you ever seen any examples of that?
Yeah, certainly. I've seen some clients over the years who I think must have a magic wand somewhere, because they just seem to, everything they touch turns to gold. They never seem to be phased. They're always on holiday enjoying themselves. I don't know what that magic ingredient is. I think that is in DNA. I think that is in your character. It's not a technique particularly. But what I think many of those people are quite good at is saying no to a lot of stuff. Yeah. They don't, like most of us, if somebody walks in your front door as a potential client, the instinct is to say, take it. And those who are most successful go, not right for us, try them, And that employee, they're not quite what we're looking for, say no. We'll find the next good route. So I think that's probably one of the characteristics, is they're prepared to say no and stick to the path that they've chosen and not get sidetracked by some of these other bits and pieces.
I guess that confidence comes from time in the business as well, knowing your business, that you can actually confidently say no to things without worrying about being able to bring in other revenue.
Yeah, certainly in my situation, in my business, the confidence to say that's not right for us, try them, has got more over the years, because the busier you are and the more successful you are, the more you feel you can afford to make those decisions. But some of those really successful people that I was talking about, they did that from day one. You know, that's how they got to where they got to, because they just said, I'm not doing that. I want to do this. Don't need that. I'll stick to, I'll do what I know is right, and the rest will sort itself out. There aren't many of those. Most people find it hard not to get sidetracked by the opportunity right in front of them that isn't quite right in the long term. We're all a bit guilty of taking any client with a pulse when we need it. So I don't know if I think there is a magic X factor that makes some people successful and others not. But there's something in there, definitely.
Which leads me very nicely on to my next question, Peter. In your experience, are those core attributes the things that can make businesses successful, or are they just things that successful businesses do? I guess the question is, are entrepreneurs born or are they trained?
I think they are born. I think there's something in their DNA that makes them different. They just think slightly differently to other people. I did a personality profiling thing many years ago where you answer a load of questions that make no sense, and at the end they give you a profile that says this is you, and you go, goodness me, that is me. And I don't really understand why. And I said to the guy who was doing it, okay, that's really interesting, so what can I do to change it? And he said, nothing. He said, it's either in your DNA, which some stuff is, or your nurture in the first 3 to 5 years has defined your characteristics. You are not really going to change anything. All you can do is understand that and then interact better with different people. And I think that's true of most of the people I see in business, is those skills that they have, that instinct that they have, optimism or pessimism, those are things that they have right from the start. And all they're finding is the right way to employ those skills and to make money out of it. Some people are just employees. There's nothing wrong with that, but they're not going to run a business. And where I think it gets confusing is some people, so the plumber starts a plumbing business. He's not really a businessman. He's got a job working for himself. That's not a business. And that confuses people sometimes. They think, oh, he runs his own business. Not really. He just has a job working for himself. A real business person who's employing people and growing and building something, I do think those are skills that people have innately in them. Now, that's not to say you can't improve them. So I was trying to find a good analogy, but if there were an exam in entrepreneurialism, if you were able to do a test that measured it, there are some people who get A stars without trying. And we'd all go, cool, that's not fair, is it? They just would. Some people are never going to pass, however much coaching, training and guidance you give them. They just don't have that instinct or understanding. Most other people could get from a marginal fail to a C with a bit of guidance and coaching, or a C to a B, or a B to a B+. Most of us could get better if we spend a bit of time, read a few books, go on a few seminars, talk to other people.
Listen to a few podcasts.
Absolutely. So I think there's, the A-star people are probably born A-stars. The D grades are never going to be there. That's just not in their DNA. Everybody else can improve if they choose to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just very quickly on that point, I know the grading system wasn't necessarily to do with academia, but looking at the successful business people, it's not necessarily the people that you would expect. So these people could be expelled from school. There's some very successful people out there who have no qualifications or have left university or left college very early and have gone on to build great successful businesses. So it's not necessarily related to your academia level. It tends to be within you, like you said.
I think as we were chatting before we started this, one of the interesting things that I find is academia tries to force that out of you. It doesn't recognise the skills of communication skills, empathy, it doesn't talk about body language, it doesn't talk about all the things that actually we know from a business point of view make the difference between winning that sale, recruiting that person, motivating your team. There's no measure of that, there's no focus on that, because the school's reason for being is exam passes, exam passes, exam passes. Kids to university into a job, and therefore I don't think it's necessarily that entrepreneurs are not educated. It's the education system doesn't recognise entrepreneurial skills. That makes sense. It's just the other way around, and therefore they often find themselves failing at school because the skills they have aren't on the curriculum, aren't assessed, aren't nurtured. So they don't fit into this mould of, but you've got to pass GCSE biology. That's of no relevance to them. There isn't one that says, how could you persuade someone to do this? That's what they're good at.
Yeah, but that's another podcast completely, isn't it, Peter?
I think so.
Yeah. And Peter, just before we close, I wanted to discuss delayed gratification with you, because this is something that comes up a lot in sort of the entrepreneurship community, and the sort of thought that you should delay gratification, you should reinvest in your business. And there's examples of people like, Grant Cardone and Gary Vaynerchuk that say, they went 20 years without taking a holiday or without having a weekend off. And you just referenced to a point you said earlier in this discussion around wishing you spent more time with your kids. How do you balance and it's not just about spending money, because it's about spending time as well. How do you balance reinvesting all those things, but actually living while you're, in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, in a space that you can actually enjoy those things, and not just getting to 60, having a load of money, but actually have been missed out on those opportunities you could have?
I don't think any of us want our epitaph to be, he was rich. I don't think anyone does. That's not a target in itself, is it? Most successful entrepreneurs I'm talking to aren't in it for the money. The money is a byproduct of they want to be successful. They want to build a business. They love what they do. They're passionate about something, and growth of the business and money flows from that. If your target is not to be labelled as rich, then it's about what are the other things that you want out of your life along the way. Now, don't get me wrong. As I said earlier, I should have spent more time with my children, and I can't change that now. And that balance between reinvesting my time into future opportunity, or reinvesting it now into playing a board game, whatever it might be, as well as reinvesting my money so that I'm putting a little bit aside so that one day I can stop working and not worry about money. That is a constant juggling act. Many years ago, I was moving money from credit card to credit card because my wife had given up work. I had young children. I was in a career that didn't pay very well at that point. That's just the stuff we have to deal with. So I think the key is to have a plan. And if the plan is, by the time I'm 60, I want to be financially independent, what wealth do I need to achieve that, and work backwards to how is that ever going to happen? Well, I've got to bank $5,000 a year or $2,000 a year or whatever. That's the bit that I think is the objective. It's like most things in business. If you have a plan, your chances of hitting it are significantly greater than if you just go to work and see what you can do. So I think financially, it's definitely about thinking ahead. What are the numbers? We do an exercise for some of our clients where we say, okay, if you want to retire at 60 on an income of this, then you need that much money in your wealth, or the money you are going to have in your wealth runs out at 73. Crikey, what are your options? Retire later, save harder, live more frugally in retirement. They're all options that everyone's got. But if you sit down and work those numbers out, then you can go, right, okay, I need to put a bit more aside, or you take the choice which says I'm working till I'm 75. They're choices today. They aren't choices when you get to 75 and you haven't got any money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess, absolutely, yeah. And I guess that you can put targets and goals around the non-financial things like holidays and time with your family and things like that. And as long as you've got the wealth to be able to cover that in the short term.
For most people, I went on a brilliant course years ago. It was one of those courses where I thought this is going to be a waste of time, and therefore it was fantastic because it wasn't. But the guy who was speaking said, I've got this magic secret to having 4 holidays a year. Who would want to know what they are? Everyone goes, yeah, I'd like to know that. He said, go down the travel agents now and book them. Because if you book them, you will find the time and you will find the money. Yeah. Most busy people go, when I'm a bit quieter, I'll book a holiday. And suddenly a year's gone by and you didn't. And another year's gone by and you didn't. That's about choices that you make. If you book that holiday, you will find the time and you will find the money. And actually you'll get just as much work done in the rest of the year. Your income will be the same. Nothing will be different, but you'll have had a nice holiday. Yeah. So it's all about planning. Okay, if I want to spend a bit more time with the kids, well, when am I going to do that? What days of the week can I go home early? What stuff can I do on a Saturday? It's a plan. That's all it is.
Fantastic.
And finally, Peter, we talked about the price of success today, but can you give our listeners one bit of advice to help them achieve success in their own lives?
It's interesting because one of the things I was reflecting on when you talk about success, it depends what your measures of success are. If your measures of success are purely financial, which I don't think they should be, that's why you look at some people and go, oh, he's successful. He might have a broken marriage, kids who don't talk to him, no friends. Well, that's not my measure of success. But if you're talking about business success, how do you make your business more successful? I would say, and I'm slightly guarded and cautious because as an accountant, I would say this, wouldn't I? But I think it's about the numbers. Understand the finances. Most of my successful clients have good data. Not just monthly management accounts, but the care home knows his occupancy levels and the average money he spends on the food per resident per day. And the tourism knows his occupancy levels and the average spend in the bar on a Saturday. Those good businesses understand the information and then are using that information to make better decisions. If you don't have that information, then you're just making up as you go along, and your chances of success are random. So I would say in most businesses, the data is there, you're just not gathering it and using it, but if it's not there, get it. If you can get good information that tells you what's working in your business, and you'll find in most cases, some customers are profitable, some are not, or fix it. Some employees are pulling their weight, some are not, or fix it. If you have that data, you can start to stop doing the things that aren't making you money and do more of the things that are making you money. And if you do that right, well, if you stop doing the stuff that doesn't work and do more of the stuff that does work, it gets better. You can only do that if you have the data to know which is which. So lots of other things that impact on success, but I would say if you don't have that data, the odds are you're doing an awful lot of stuff which is wasting your time and money and you just don't know what they are.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So start measuring.
Yep.
Don't be reliant just on money being the sole metric of success.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, brilliant. Well, thank you for your time today, Peter. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Well, they can go through the Mark Holton Co website. All our contact details are on there, my email address, etc. So if they want to know more, just pick up the phone, send me an email. Happy to talk to anyone about anything. And particularly in this context, we do a lot of projects helping people identify what they think success is. What are their targets for growth? What are their frustrations? And some of that work is do less. You're making enough money, go and spend time with the kids, recruit that person to take that work off your desk and your life will be a bit easier. It costs you a bit of money, but life will be easier. So a lot of what we do in our healing business is about helping people identify the plan. Where are they going? So look at the website, all those contact details are there.
So it's Mark Holton Co. and the sister company, which is Helium.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Peter. But we want to know your thoughts and experiences on how you deal with those, how you deal with success, and what are your top tips for success. Drop us an email on hello@pig.network or get in touch on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram.
This is Your Success Podcast. Click subscribe, leave us a review, and we look forward to your comments on the Pig Pod Facebook page or the YouTube channel. I've been Angelos.
I've been Mo.
And see you again on the next exciting podcast. Your Success Podcast is proudly sponsored by Your Tax Partners. If you're in business or an active property investor, talk to them to better understand your tax affairs and your options. If that's you, there is a special offer waiting for you at tiny.cc/successpod. That's tiny.cc/successpod.
You have been listening to Your Success Podcast. Click subscribe for more incredible content. More details can be found at www.yoursuccesspodcast.com.